Hey everyone, welcome back to the Only Chip in the Cookie. So in light of everything happening within the Black community over the last 8 months or so, how has the company you work for responded? Is your company taking bolder steps towards diversity, equity, and inclusion? Recently, I had a listener reach out to me and their message in part read, "I want to be more supportive of my BIPOC employees, but I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to say. I'm scared." Easy, take a deep breath, relax. What if I told you that the first step to becoming a more supportive leader was to actually take a look inward? Before we go down this journey, I want to share with you a little bit about myself and why I've made it my personal mission to hold these types of conversations with team members and leadership. As a Black man living in Iowa, working in Iowa, I've encountered racism, and the place where I've encountered it the most, work. From coworkers making assumptions about me to managers and leaders making discriminatory remarks. Earlier in my career, a former boss of mine made a failed attempt at cracking a joke that had Black people at the butt of it. It was racist. When I approached him in private to respectfully express my offense to his joke, he dismissively said to me, "But this is just how I joke with my friends, Larry. Maybe it's just best that we only talk when there's a business need to do so." Wow. And the guy literally went right back to doing his work like nothing happened. He was either completely oblivious or just flat out did not care. And when word got around the office that fun guy Larry was becoming a little less fun due to me being more outspoken about the idea that Black lives mattered, it was like a switch flipped, and I began getting treated differently by my predominantly white coworkers. It almost felt like I was wrong for speaking out against anti-Black racism as a Black man. SNL did a sketch a few years back called "The Day Beyonce Turned Black." It's on YouTube. Definitely check it out. But anyway, as an employee, it became increasingly difficult for me to focus on my work. I was shocked by the lack of empathy my coworkers were showing me at a time when I really needed allies. The lack of support given to me led to my lack of trust for the organization. Insecurities I was feeling as the sole Black person in the office ultimately became a huge distraction for me. My production on the job plummeted. Ultimately, I left. Now, I've often thought, what would my experience have been like had I had just a little more support around race issues at work? This was a job I was passionate about, I was successful in, I had been promoted and achieved a few milestones with the company. I had a couple coworkers that had my back, but ultimately the lack of support from my leaders was perhaps the most crushing. Wow, these people are literally about to let $1 million producer walk out the door because they choose to ignore the realities and concerns of the person of color that they hired. It was baffling. Since then, I've made it my mission to work with leadership in recognizing the racist pitfalls that are all too common on the job. Are you still with me? Great, because you're on your way to becoming a great ally. As I said earlier in this conversation, the first step to positioning yourself to be a better ally to the team you support really is to look inward. And this is what I mean. First, you've got to educate yourself. Educate yourself on racism and its many forms. I know racism is racism, but as Meek Mill said, there's levels to this. You see, a lot of people, managers and leaders included, have a belief or rather a misunderstanding that racism is blatant, like when someone blatantly refers to somebody else as a racial slur, or when someone makes a general put down about someone of a different race. The truth is, institutional racism, systemic racism, and racism's other forms are sneaky snakes. If these definitions and understandings are on your radar, then what's to prevent them from taking place in the office? The other thing you need to do is take inventory of your own inner biases. Why is this important? Because the way you feel about a particular group of people will dictate how you lead and manage them. A lot of the biases that we reserve towards specific groups usually tie back to racist stereotypes and generalizations and are not rooted in truth. I'm almost afraid to suggest this, but take some of the stereotypes that you've subscribed in the past. For example, these people are great dancers, or these people are terrible drivers, and Google where the origins of these stereotypes came from. You will find that the origins to a lot of these biases we've subscribed to were created originally to keep that group from reaching a certain level of power or influence or basic human rights. Now, my grandmother used to always say, don't start none, won't be none. Although silence is typically the enemy of the anti-racist, here are some examples of what not to say at work or really anywhere. You gotta get away from, I don't see color. Ugh. The reality is, we do not live in a utopia and we don't work in them either. So to say you don't see color diminishes the experiences unique to members of your team. It dismisses and discredits their points of view. Race is a man-made social construct, but its effects on our society are all too real. Something else you can cease from saying immediately, all lives matter. Just like with colorblind, this retort to Black Lives Matter only minimizes and ignores the realities that Black people in this country are faced with every day. Having a hard time with this one? Well, think of it like this. If you're sad because your grandmother just passed from cancer, wouldn't it be strange or insensitive for me to say, well, all diseases matter? If you break your arm and your arm needs a cast, you're not going to tell your doctor that all bones matter, are you? No. Refrain from treating your employee who is a person of color as the subject matter expert of their race. Your employees may open up on their own about their experiences, but everyone's view is shaped on their own unique perspective. Sure, we may have some general curiosities over particular cultures and how and why they do things and things like that, but unless that person is open and outwardly talks about those kinds of things, there are plenty of other resources out there for you to learn more about somebody's culture. A lot of the companies that you all are working for have recently taken bold stances against racism and have pledged to hold their organizations accountable for curating more equitable and inclusive workspaces. As leaders, you'll find that stepping your game up with better support to your BIPOC personnel, attrition will go down, employee satisfaction will go up. When employee satisfaction increases, so does production. Production increases profits. And next, you'll be asking my advice on how to ask for a promotion. There are so many more ways that you as leaders can serve as better allies to your BIPOC employees. These tips are merely the tip of the iceberg. These are steps that we can take today. All of us can take today to live a more inclusive lifestyle and also be a more inclusive leader. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been the Only Chip in the Cookie podcast.